Alright, well in this video we're going to talk about how to solve any type of percent scenario using something we call the percent equation. This is the second of the two main methods that you can use to solve for the piece, the whole, or the percentage. Either of those three pieces that you're missing, those three items that you're missing. So any type of word problem where you're asking to find some combination, one of these three missing pieces, that's what this is really talking about. In our previous video we talked about a method called the percent proportion. In this video we're going to focus on something called the percent equation. And so the percent equation actually isn't as hard as it sounds. It's usually a result of one common relationship. Think about when we first, in the beginning of chapter 6, found the percent of a number. Like we had questions like, what is 60% of 100? What is 60% of 100? We learned in early chapter 6, we would just do 60% times 100, or 0.6 times 100, and we would get our answer. And in that case, the answer is 60. I chose it where it would be an even number. And so if we did the percentage times of 100, I said, will equal the number. So what I mean is this multiplying relationship, we're going to use that relationship for the equation. And that relationship is the equation that we're going to use to manipulate anything that we need. And so as a reminder from last video, in case you've watched it, maybe you haven't, when we say the percent of something, we're just going to say percent. But when we say the whole of something, meaning the entire something, the whole of something is also known as the original something, the entire original something, where we started. Very, very commonly in word problems and in long drawn out problems, it's also referred to as the of number. It'll somehow say of something or a piece of a whole. That of number, it almost always uses the word of, such as in this example, says of 750, or down here says 45 is 9% of what number? The of is the entire, it is the whole. So I'm going to translate this equation to the equivalent. I'm just going to go ahead and use these words as well. The of is what that's going to be. So the percent times the of, that will always equal the part, or the piece, or the of. I'm sorry, not the of, or the is. The is portion, okay? Your part is known as your piece, just some portion of the whole, and very commonly will be referred to as the word is in word problems. In example 2, it says 45 is, so 45 is the is number. In example 1, it says 600 is, so that means 600 is the is number. So use your reading skills when working through these and make sure you can identify which number is the is number, which number is the of number, and which number is the percent number. One of them will be missing though. And so your job in every single one of these questions is they're going to ask you for the is number, or they're going to ask you for the percent number, or they're going to ask you for the of number, or the whole number. So know that these words mean the same thing. That's why I listed them up here. They're kind of synonyms for you. They all mean the same thing. So that's a relationship that we're going to use for this relationship, this equation, is what we're going to use for every single one of our problems. So now let's run it through these couple examples real fast. In example 1, it says 600 is what percent of 750? So they told you 600 is. So that is your is number. Of 750, 750 is your of number. So when you go to work this out, just take your time and put them in the position where they go. The of number goes there. It says what percent, meaning we don't know the percent. So we're looking for the percent. So we'll just call it letter N. So some percent times 750 will equal 600. It is 600. So that 600 goes here. So that is a one-step equation. N times a number equals another number. So we have to get N by itself. So we have to get rid of times 750. And you always get rid of multiplying by dividing. That's the opposite. So divide both sides by 750. So they cancel on the right side. And if you do that, you're left with N equals 600 divided by 750. So that means 600 divided by 750, and that's going to give us 0.8. So that means 0.8 is N. Well, remember, N is a percentage. 0.8, it's not quite a reasonable answer yet. It gave us a decimal. When you use the percent equation, percentage will always be either entered as a decimal, or if you're solving for it, your answer will be a decimal. Your job is to convert it back. If you need a reminder of how to convert between decimals and percentages, check out the very first video we put up for chapter 6 of converting between decimals and percentages. So as a brief reminder, to convert that to a percentage, you just move that decimal place 2 times to the right. So that means we have a space that goes right here. So it's going to become 80. So that tells us our percentage is 80%. That's what that means. 0.8 is 80%. And so that means 80%, 600 is 80% of 750. And that answer is reasonable because, guys, 600, that's way more than half of 750, and it's almost all of it. So we're looking for a percentage that is way more than 50%, but almost all of it. So this was a reasonable answer. And that's what I want you guys to look for. Look for reasonable answers for each of your questions. Let's do a few more examples. All right, so in our previous example, we were looking for the percent. That's what was missing. We were missing the percent. So now in this example, in example 2, we know the is number, we know the percentage number, but now we're missing the of number. We're missing the whole number, the original number. That's what we're missing. So we know the piece, we know the percentage, we're looking for the whole. So this one's a slightly different scenario. But I want you guys to see it sets up exactly the same. So it says of what number, meaning we don't know it. We don't know the of number. And so we don't know the whole number. So I'm just going to call that W in our format for equation. So W times, that's an ugly W. Let's try that again. So W times the percentage. 90%, when you enter it into your equation, it's got to be in its decimal form. So 90% is known as 0.9 or 0.90. They mean the same thing. So 0.9 is 90%. That will equal the is number, the part, the piece, the portion of the whole. It says 45 is, so that means 45 is our is number. So we put a 45 right there. Now that's an equation. We have 0.9, I'll even put a 0 in there if it helps you understand what that number is. So we have 0.9 times W equals 45. So we have to get W by itself. So we have to get rid of times 0.9. To get rid of times 0.9, you're going to divide by 0.9. You can use a fraction bar, or you can use the division sign when you show your work. It doesn't matter. So divide both sides by 0.9. They cancel on the right. And then once you do that, we're left with W, our of number. We're left with the of number, or the whole. Then you just need to figure out what is 45 divided by 0.9. And if you do that, you're going to get 50. 45 divided by 0.9, feel free to use a calculator, no big deal. That's going to give you 50. So that means 50 is the whole. 50 is the entire pie. It's the original. It is the of number. So that would mean 45 is 90% of 50. And let's see if that makes sense. 90%, that's almost all of it. All of it is 100%, and this says 90%, so that's almost all of it. So that means 45 is almost all of some number. So it's only going to be a number that's a little bit more than 45. And so we got 50. And so 45 is almost all of 50. So that's a very reasonable answer. That's how you know you scored right. So if your decimal is ever in the wrong spot, like maybe you just accidentally made this 9, or even made this 90, if you had left this as 90, you would have gotten 5,000 as your answer. And if you left this as 90, then you divided both sides by 90, you would have had 5,000 equals W. But come on, guys, 45 is 90% of 5,000. That doesn't make any sense based on what we said. 45 is almost all of, since 90% is almost all of what number? 5,000? 45 is nowhere near almost all of 5,000. So adjust that decimal. 500. 45 is still nowhere near to all of 500. So it can't be 500. So move that decimal again. Make it a 50. So then you're like, oh, okay, 45 is almost all of 50. So that's our reasonable answer. So just remember, this decimal stuff, don't think that it's magic. Just make sure that if you lose track of that decimal, it's not the end of the world. Just make sure that your final answer, make sure it's reasonable by doing what we've talked about with just your basic knowledge of what percentages are. So let's do some more examples. So we're not going to do all of the examples on this screen, but I wanted to help you organize your thoughts. And this also applies to the last video we did. I want to help you understand that there's only 3 types of questions that you'll see in this entire first half of chapter 6, actually more than half, and including almost all percent questions. There's only 3 types of questions. There's a question where you're looking for the of number, there's a question where you're looking for the is number, or a question where you're looking for the percent number. So as a reminder, just to remind you, that general formula we're using is percent multiplied by the of number. That will always equal the is number. So that's the relationship we're using. That's just a slightly faster translation of the original equation we started with. So it's the percent times the of number will equal the is number. So for each of these, let's just quickly identify. Let me show you how we know what we're looking for. If you read through number one says, what percent of 56 is 14? Well, hey, they just said is 14. That's our is number. They just said of 56, so we know our of number. What percent? So that means in this question, we're looking for the percent. That's what we're looking for in number one. So you'll write this equation, fill in for your is and your of. Remember, your is goes here, or at the very end, equals is, doesn't matter if it's on the right. And then your of. Fill in for those. And you got to solve for the percentage by dividing both sides by the of. And that makes sense. If you want to know the percentage of something, we talked about that last video. Just do the part divided by the whole, or the portion divided by the whole. That'll give you a decimal, which will convert to your percentage. Now, look at number two. In number two, they said 36 is what percent of 40? Well, hey, of 40, that's your of number. 36 is, that's your is number. What percent? Okay, so in this question, you're also looking for percent. That's what we're looking for. Now look at number 4 right below it. 65%, oh, they gave us a percentage this time. Of what number is 78? Well, hey, they gave us the is number. Of what number? That means we don't know the of, but we do know the percent. So in this question, we're looking for the of number. We're looking for the entire number, the whole, the entire pie that it came from. And number 3, 80 is, that's the is number. 40%, that's the percentage. Of what number? Of what number? So we're looking for the of, again, and number 3. So now let's see. Now, so it looks like there's a slight pattern that would appear. So number 5, let's see. It says what percent of 2,000 is 8? So what percent of 2,000 is 8? So is 8, that's our is number. Of 2,000, that's our of. So we're looking for the percent in number 5. In number 6, it says what is 110% of 40? It gave us the of number. It gave us the percentage, 110%. What is? Oh, they're looking for the is number. So they're looking for the is number in number 6. In number 8, find 30% of 70. Okay, so that's going to be find 30%. So we know the percentage, we know the of 70, and we know the percentage. There was no mention of the is. Oh, so that means they're saying what is 30% of 70. They're saying the same thing in number 6, they're just using different words. They're using different language. So use your reading skills, make sure you understand these. So they're looking for the is in number 8. That's what they're looking for. That's a question mark. On number 7, it says 85 is what percent of 170? So they gave us the is, they gave us the of. So we know if we do the is the part, of is the whole. So if we do 85 divided by 170, that'll actually give you a decimal, and that decimal can be converted to your answer for number 7. So you can show your work by saying 85 divided by 170 equals, and have that decimal, and then convert that decimal to a percentage by moving the decimal place twice, and you'll have the answer for number 7. So if you think you could do some of these, hit pause for a moment and try some of these questions. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'll explain a couple of them, but then I'm going to give you the answers to the others. That way you can kind of check yourself. So hit pause for a moment. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through one of each type. I'll do one of each of the percent, looking for the percent questions. I'll do one of each of the of questions, and then I'll do one of the looking for the is questions. That way you kind of see a version of each of them. So number 1, let's start with number 1. What percent of 56 is 14? So we put the percent there, percent times the of number or the whole number equals the is number or the part number. So times 56 equals 14. So we have to get rid of times 56 to get n by itself. So you're going to divide both sides by 56. That's how you show your work. So they cancel on the left. So then on the right side, you just have to figure out what is 14 divided by 56, meaning what is the part divided by the whole. That's 14 out of 56. It's like a fraction. So it's just like when we learned how to convert fractions to decimals. That's what we're doing here. So 14 divided by 56, that's going to give us, I'm using a calculator for this, you're welcome to. That's going to give us 0.25. So that tells us n equals 0.25. Well, let's make sure our answers are reasonable. It says what percent? That's a very, very small quote-unquote percent maybe. But let's see, guys. We haven't converted it to a percent yet. So that's what we still have to do. To convert to a percent, you move that decimal over twice to the right. So that tells us 25%. And that's going to be our answer to this question. 25% to number 1. And that makes sense. What percent of 56 is 14? 14 is less than half of 56. In fact, 14 is half of 56, so half of a half would be a quarter, or 25%. So that answer is reasonable. Just like you could have simplified 14 over 56, you would have simplified to 1 over 4, and then that would equals 0.25. So I'll hit pause and try, the next questions I'm going to go over are going to be, I'll do number 4, and then I will do number 6. We'll do number 4 and number 6 next. So hit pause and try them first on your own, and then hit play and see how you did, and then hit pause again if you haven't already and try the other questions, and then I'll go ahead and put up the answers to the other questions. Okay, so in number 4, 65% of what number is 78? We know the is number, so I'm going to go ahead and write that. Equals 78. By the way, it doesn't matter if you have the equals is on the right side or on the left side like it was up here. It doesn't matter. It means the same thing. So equals 78 of what number? We don't know the of. That. Okay, so we don't know the of, so I'm just going to call that's the whole, that's the entire. So I'm going to call that W. But we do know the percentage. The percentage is 65%. So 65%, once you enter it into your equation, needs to be a decimal. So 0.65 is what it needs to be. So 0.65 times W equals 78. So now solve this equation. Got to get W by itself, so you have to get rid of times 0.65. Get rid of multiplying by dividing. So divide both sides by 0.65. They cancel on the left, and you're left with W, which is the whole, or the of number. So you're left with W equals 78 divided by 0.65. Again, calculator to the rescue. So 78 divided by 0.65. The calculator equals 120. So that tells you 65% of 120 is 78. And so let's see, 65%. So that means more than half, not a little more than a little more of half. So is 78. So a half of 120 is 60. So we're looking for an answer that's more than 60, but not like a whole lot more, but it is more. So 78 is going to be our money. 78 is a little more than half of 60. So that it is reasonable that 78 is 65% of 120. That answer is reasonable. If you lost track of your decimal and you accidentally divided by, you left that as a 65, your answer here would have been 1.20, I believe. If you did 78 divided by 65, you would have had 1.20. And if that had been the case, you would have like, hey, 1.20. Wait a minute, so 78 out of 1.2, that's 65%? No, that's not reasonable. It's got to be a number bigger than 78 because it's only 65%, so it's got to be bigger than that. So 1.2 can't be it. Maybe move the decimal over once. Maybe make it 12. 78 out of 12 is 65%? No, that's not reasonable either. 12 is not bigger than 78. So move it over again, 120. Now you're talking with a reasonable answer. So that's what I mean by making sure your answers are reasonable. So don't think it's decimal magic. Make sure you just realize it's just really making your answers reasonable. All right, so I'm going to help you guys out with number 6. So press pause if you have not tried number 6 already. This is a question we're looking for the is, and then hit play and see how you did. Okay, in number 6, we are looking for the is number. What is? So that means we're going to have equals some number. We don't know. We call that the part number or the piece number or the portion number. Some can call it P. Now, we know the of number. We know the entire number, the original number, the whole number. So that's 80. We also know the percentage. The percentage is 110%. Got to convert that to a decimal. As a decimal, that's 1.10 or just 1.1. So we have 1.1 times 80 equals P. So we're looking for an answer. What is 110% of 80? Well, hey, 110%, that's more than all of it because all of it's 100%. So we're looking for an answer that's bigger than 80. So make sure a reasonable answer, we're expecting something bigger than 80. Gotta get rid of times 1.1, so we divide by 1.1. Hey, wait a minute, I did that wrong. I'm not following my equation skills. Let's take a step back. We wrote it correctly. I'm just silly. Look at this. There's nothing to get by itself. P already is by itself. So just multiply these together and you're good. This is just like what we learned back in the first section of chapter 6. What is 110% of 80? That means 110% times 80. So all you gotta do is use your calculator. Multiply these. So I was about to get a very unreasonable answer because I would have had P divided by 1.1. That gets us nowhere. All right, so 1.1 times 80. That gives us 88. 1.1 times 80 is 88. So that tells us 88 equals P. 88 represented the piece, or the portion, or the is number. So that means 88 is 110% of 80. That's what that means. And we said we were expecting a number that was more than 80, and only 10% more than 80. So 10% of 80 is 8. So 100% of 80 is 80. 10% of 80 is 8. So 80 plus 8, hey, it's 100. It's 88. So that's another way you could have worked out that question if you had to do it mentally on the fly. So now, hopefully, these 3 examples maybe gave you a little bit of practice. So now take a look at the other examples on the screen and see if you can write the equation and solve them. So press pause for a moment and try each of them. I'm not going to take the time to explain all of them, but I am going to take the time to go ahead and write the equation and write your answers for you. So take a moment, hit pause, try those questions, the other questions on the screen. All right, so take a moment to go ahead and check each of the questions you tried after hitting pause. All the answers are given on the screen. And make sure to take a moment to think, to make sure you know how to set it up. Make sure you put everything in its proper location, and then you use your equation skills to solve for it. And make sure your answers are reasonable. We're now going to do a couple word problems, and then we'll be all done. All right, so these are the 2 questions that we're going to do for our final 2 examples. So if you think you already can handle doing these word problems, you think you can identify the is number, the of number, or the percent, and solve for the one you don't know out of those 3, take a moment, hit pause, try these questions on your own first, and then hit play and see how you did. So take that moment. Okay, so for each of them, I'm going to read through. We're going to look for the is number, meaning the portion number. We're going to look for the of number, the entire number. Then we'll look for the percentage. That's what we're going to work through. So let's see. On Mars, an object weighs 38% as much as on Earth. How much would a person who weighs 165 pounds on Earth weigh on Mars? So an object weighs 38%. Well, I think that's a giveaway. That's 38%. That's our percentage. So we know our percentage. Now we're just looking for our whole number, our of number, and our is number. So it says on Mars an object weighs 38% as much as on Earth, meaning 38% of the weight on Earth. Use your reading skills to maybe rephrase it slightly using these words is and of. So 38% of weight, 38% of Earth's weight. Think of it that way. Meaning if we know Earth's weight, that's our of weight. That is going to be our original weight. We said the of can be thought of as the original amount or the whole amount. So in this case, of is the Earth weight. Then let's keep reading. How much would a person who weighs 165 pounds on Earth? Oh, wait a minute. Hey, that's the Earth weight. So that's the of number. 165 is our of number. That is because it's going to be 38% of the normal amount, and that's how much we weigh on Mars. Because remember, Mars is smaller than Earth, so you have less gravity on Mars. So you weigh less, because how much you weigh is always in relation to how much gravity. Anyways, if we now are looking for what's missing, oh, the is number. And the weight on Mars, so the weight on Mars is, so we're looking for the is number. That's what we're missing. So let's write our equation. Is also known as the part or the portion, so we're going to put a P there. So if you think you got it from here, now I've helped you identify them. If you couldn't do it before, hit pause and see if you can do it on your own. Okay, so that portion equals our percentage, convert it to a decimal, 0.38, times our of number, or our original number, and that was going to be 165. So 165. So now that's your equation to solve. You're going to use your equation skills. And there's nothing to move around because P is already by itself. All we have to do is multiply those together. So feel free to use a calculator or long multiplication and just multiply those together. So 0.38 times 165 on the calculator gives me 62.7. So that tells me on Mars, our weight is going to be 62.7. So if you want to put your answer in a complete sentence, you could say, if your weight on Earth is 165 pounds, then your weight on Mars will be 62.7 pounds. And LBS is the abbreviation for pounds. That would be your weight on Mars. And you solve that question using the percent equation. If you haven't already tried number 8, press pause and do so now. Okay, so let's read through and see if we can identify the is number, the of number, so the original number or the portion number, and then maybe the percentage, and see what two of those 3 things do we know, and let's solve for the one we don't. So Javier had 2 passes intercepted out of 17. Oh, they used the word of, so that was obvious. So out of 17. So he had 2 passes intercepted out of 17 attempts in his last football game. What percent of Javier's passes were intercepted? Round to the nearest tenth if necessary. Hey, what percent? Oh, they made it obvious. What percent? We're looking for the percent. That's what that tells us. So that means we know the of, we're looking for the percent, so that means we probably have the is in here somewhere. Javier had 2 passes, so that was 2 out of 17. So 2 out of 17 means 2 over 17. And remember what we said earlier, another way to think of that equation is if you take your is number or your portion number, and you put it over your entire number or your of number, so that's piece over the whole, that is another way to find percentage. We talked about that, I think, a little bit last class. And that makes sense. If you do a fraction, if you do a piece divided by the whole, that'll give you a decimal, and that decimal can be converted to your percentage. So that means 2 passes, that is your is number, that's your piece number, your part number, your portion number, your little bit of the whole number. Sometimes that can be bigger though, so sometimes I'm cautious using the word part. Anyways, let's plug in what we know and solve for what we don't. That's what we're going to do. So now we do not know our percent number, so I'm just going to say n times our whole number, our original, our of number. That one we do know, 17. That is going to equal our is number, or our portion number, 2. So now solve this equation, use your equation skills. If you got to get rid of times 17, you do that by dividing by 17. So divide both sides by 17. They cancel on the right side, and you're left with n equals, now use your calculator, we're going to do 2 divided by 17. So 2 divided by 17, that equals, that's going to equal a scary little decimal. I'm just going to write a few of the digits. So I'm going to turn that into approximately squiggly equal sign. 0.11767, that's more than enough. It keeps going. Alright, so, but now we can answer the question. The question said round to the nearest tenth if necessary. Before we do anything, let's turn this decimal into a percentage. Let's do that first, because we're saying what percent. And we'll do that by moving it over twice. So it starts there, move it over twice. So it's going to be after the second one, but before the 7. So that means our percentage is known as 11.7647 and so on. But now that's a percentage number because we've moved the decimal place. Except it says round to the nearest tenth if necessary. It'd be silly to do all this work and then to get this question wrong because you rounded incorrectly. For the nearest tenth, that means that first place value after the decimal. So round to 1 digit. You look at the second digit, tell you how to round the first digit. The second digit is 5 or higher, it's a 6, so that means round up on this one. So it becomes 11.8. So that tells you your percentage is 11.8%. And you rounded with that, but that's okay. That's a really, really close value. And so 11.8% is going to be your answer. So that means Javier had 11.8% of his passes intercepted. And that's actually a statistic. If you guys pay attention to sports, that's actually a statistic they use to sometimes describe or to rate a quarterback. What percentage, how many completed passes does he have, or maybe how often does he have an interception. So in closing, just remember guys, for every single one of these questions, word problems, especially the ones like we did a bunch of examples of, look for the is number, meaning the portion or the whole number. I'm sorry, not the whole, the portion or the piece number. And that'll usually have the word is somewhere around it. Look for the percent. That's usually pretty obvious. It'll say what percent, or it'll just give you a percent. Look for the of number. That's the whole number or the original number. And so just plug them in where they go and then just use your equation skills to solve for what you don't know. So number 7 here, we solve for the is number. We solve for the portion, the part number, the piece. And in number 8, we solve for the percentage. We knew the portion, we knew the whole. We just had to solve for the percentage. So take your time when you work through these. Use your reading skills and you'll be just fine. Good luck, guys.